Hi guys, we're so glad that you can join us today for a few minutes. Chris and I just thought that after 15 years of marriage...
What she really means is that she's obsessed with me, and what she really wants to tell you about are different ways in which...
So like I was saying, today we're going to take a few minutes just to talk about some things that we found helpful in our relationship, and we hope that whether you're in a marriage or a long-term relationship, they help you too. Right, honey? Okay, for real, guys. We like to have fun, but we do hope that we're just going to share 5 quick things today that can help you in your marriage or in your long-term relationship. We are gearing it towards marriage, but it could help anybody, so take it and run with it. Chris, will you start us off?
Number 1. All right, we're going to tell you that probably what's really important is to prioritize connections, and you should probably break this down. What your connection looks like is going to be different than what our connection looks like. We can give you some examples for what has worked for us, but we like to break it down as to like what are the big connections we try to schedule around our calendar, like those 1, 2, or 3 times a year, like like a holiday, like a special vacation where we take the family out, or maybe one where it's just Rachel and I, even if it's just for the weekend. We know it's hard with kids, but like connection is really important, and so we have the big ones, but then like the little ones, we do a weekly routine where on the weekend, so we take Fridays off, and if we're not working on Saturday morning, typically what we do is we have a kind of like a coffee nook. Is that what you would call it? It's like
sure,
we have a couch, we go up to the window, especially if it's a nice sunny day, and we drink way too much coffee. Coffee's a big success, right? So we just talk, and we'll talk for hours, right? And so we just talk about the things that are on our mind, or the dreams or visions we've got going on, and prioritizing that is really important. And that's I'm also going to say this. It's a kind of a time when we let our parenting
don't say that.
Standards go down a little.
Don't say that.
Because we're like,
No, I don't want to say this part.
We try to let a little bit of screen time for the kids, but during that time, we give them a little bit more.
I don't want to say that part.
I said it. It's on there.
Matt, edit this part out, okay? Okay, well, I think that connection is so important for us, and we're extroverts, but here's a couple things that I would add to that, Chris, is that you and I laugh a lot. It doesn't matter if we're making dumb jokes that have been in our history back when we were in college, or if we're just trying to joke about things or watching a comedy. We love to laugh. And here's another thing is I would say, especially for me, I would say yes whenever you can. When your spouse asks you of something, say yes whenever you can. Like Chris loves to watch TV and I love to read books, but many times he'll...
What are you making me sound like?
Many times he'll ask me in the evenings to come watch a show with him. And I try to... That's what the saying yes is about. I try to say yes whenever I can and stop doing whatever I'm doing and prioritize our relationship and our connecting together. Let's move on to number 2, don't you think?
Number 2, you go.
Number 2. Okay, this one's a little deeper, but I just wanted to say, do the work on yourself and on your relationship. And a lot of people talk about prioritizing the relationship. And Chris and I, we went through a pretty rough process in the beginning years of our marriage of going from 2 I's into a we.
And we're 2 firstborns, right? So we both think we're always right.
We are both always right.
Well,
I'm always right.
She's right. The first 2 years were really rough, and I was actually worried where we were headed as a couple. And so this one was maybe it's not where you're at in your relationship, but early in our relationship, this was probably the number 1 thing, right?
Yeah, and I think that prioritizing both of you becoming a we and a team is really important. But I guess the piece I want to emphasize is also bringing your best self to the we. And there's things that you may need to do or work on that are personal to you. If you want to be a healthy couple starts with being a healthy individual and 2 healthy individuals coming together. And there's part of that you must do the work for yourself so that you can do the work together as a couple. And Chris and I, when we talk about our future, when we do a lot of problem solving, it's always in terms of a we. And one of the things that's kind of like our cardinal rule is like, if something doesn't work for one of us, it doesn't work for both of us. And that we're committed to the we, but there's things that I personally do, whether it is, you know, my spiritual habits, or whether it's my workout routine. I know that's going to make me bring my best self to the relationship. So do the work as individuals and for the sake of the we, so that you can be a great team.
All right. Number 3, be quick to apologize and slow to call out. You're going to run into bumps along the way. Rachel and I, like, we're kind of unique. We work together and we're trying to, you know, forge this relationship together. We've been in it for 15 years. We have a family. And so oftentimes you're just going to run into points where you misstep along the way. That's going to be natural part of the process. And so I think this is sort of organic. This just sort of happened with both of us, especially over the last like 3 or 4 years. But it's like, when we recognize that we've gone out of bounds, I would say like 80% of the time we recognize ourselves if we've gone outside of bounds, and we're really quick to make that right. But if there's one of those things that maybe something struck you the wrong way, or it hurt you, or it triggers something, I've just learned that if I just take a deep breath and usually give it a full day before I actually address it, that means the temperatures have just come down. And so you're actually on an even playing field. Like, you're able to say, hey, Rach, you know, what you said about this yesterday, you probably weren't thinking of it in this term, but this is how it struck me. I find that people who are quick to call out and say, hey, you were wrong, especially when the temperatures are still up, it's usually gonna end off pretty poorly. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. And I think that, you know, for me, there's like this balance of letting go of whatever I can let go of so that it doesn't even get brought up.
Yep.
And also understanding the differences that exist. And there might be things that I prefer, but after 15 years, I know Chris, and some things that are the way that he's just different than me and I'm different than him. I need to recognize who he is and not always expect him to bend to the way that I like to operate, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, Chris, this leads us to our 4th point, which I think might be maybe the most important thing that we have on this list.
Well,
but I want you to talk about it.
Well, at least the most important thing we've learned.
Yeah, this has been a game changer for us.
Well, and I would say number 4 is let your spouse be themselves. Another way of putting that is, don't try to turn your spouse into something they're not, someone they're not. Instead, reinforce the best qualities in making them the best possible them that they can be. And so I think a lot of relationships get stuck here. I think like you have this expectation that you expect, especially if you're in a previous marriage or you're in a previous relationship that was meaningful, you almost expect them to be something that they may not be. And you really gotta jettison that out of your head, because all that does is build resentment, I think, in the long run.
Oh, I think, Chris, too, like sometimes people just you might feel a value about something really strongly, and you just want the other person to feel that value as strongly as you do. And I'm gonna talk to the women for a second. Stop being your spouse's mom, okay? Don't tell them what to do. This has been a game changer for Chris and I, because there's things and preferences that he has, and it might not be my preference, but you know what? He's not me, and I don't want him to be me. I need to appreciate who he is. And something even like that you are getting so uptight about. I used to get so uptight because Chris would want to get a 99-cent bean burrito from Taco Bell, and he would go through the drive-thru, and ethically I was like, Chris, this is just, you need to care about people in poverty. And that was my heart that was just like, had this extreme value. And Chris values that too. But guess what? He didn't see a conflict with the 99-cent burrito.
Yeah.
And you know what
I think I responded with, let me be a man. Right?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. So. But you know what? So many wives are trying to be, like when you're trying to tell your spouse what to do according to your own values, that's not how a marriage works. A marriage works when you both listen to one another and you form new values together. And it's probably going to be somewhere in the middle of what he wants and what I want. We're going to come to a new value together, but just stop telling each other what to do. I don't want Chris to feel like I'm being his mom.
Well, I think too, like a lot of guys have these superficial expectations on their wives that they can never live up to. And it really depends on like what your history is. But if, you know, like just to be straight up, we live in a really overly sexualized world, like sexually charged world. And I think sometimes like we place these unrealistic expectations on our spouse and we take it out on them when they don't live up to the expectation they don't even know about, nor is healthy for a relationship. And I think that can go into domestic stuff as well. Like you expect your wife, hey, you may want her to contribute financially to the family unit by being employed, but you also expect her to do all the things that historically have been in the domestic role for a wife instead of looking at it as a team. And again, that just sets, like, those are really typical, like, you know, old-fashioned things we're talking about, but we do see them play out today, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes I think that in a dual working household, you know, there's a lot of pressure on everybody. But I think the last thing I would say about letting your spouse be themselves is that I've learned, I think when Chris and I came into our marriage, we both had personal dreams and hopes. And I think over time, we've learned to care as much about the other person's dreams for their life as we have our own dreams. And we try whenever possible to support those dreams and those passions. I mean, Chris is pursuing a doctorate right now, and I know how important that is to him. And I want him to be able to see that dream come to reality. So it's important to ask ourselves, not only how am I going to be seen, how am I going to be heard, but how am I going to help my spouse succeed at the things that are important to them?
Well, and really, like, you know, and this is going to almost sound selfish, but when like people in your family are healthy and when they're happy, it just makes for a happy environment for yourself to flourish in, right? Like it's just you give and you get, and you know, you're going to have seasons outside of your relationships and your marriages where you're going to have bumps, right?
Yeah.
Like the market goes down, or you lose your job, or someone gets that bad news from the doctor. And like your spouse or your significant other can either be a rock or it can be quicksand. And so I think the habits you build in every single day and every single year is what's going to make the difference, even individually in your life, not just your relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I just say one more thing?
Wait, what are you going to say?
Well, no, I just want to say this one thing because I'm just thinking of it. Sometimes you individually might do all these things right and the relationship still goes sideways on you because of a choice the other person makes. And I think I see a lot of people get trapped in a sense of false guilt because they just think, oh, if I just done something differently. But there are circumstances in which, you know, people just make bad individual choices and the consequences affect the family. And if like you've lived that or are living that, just recognize that these standards are something that you can use for a future relationship perhaps, but also like it doesn't necessarily condemn you that you did something wrong in the
No,
past.
absolutely not. And I think that it's really hard to be a we, and it's something both people have to want. Both people have to fight for the relationship, and maybe some of you feel like, well, I've been fighting for a really long time, but I don't really know if I don't feel like my spouse is fighting. And that just comes back to communication and honest conversations, and also gathering support around you.
Well, and for those who are looking toward a serious relationship or marriage, it's why we all want relationships. We all want to feel wanted and desired, but it's why doing the hard work on the front end is like, I mean, just because someone is available doesn't mean they're healthy for you. And so you want to make sure you're processing those things and taking, you know, people's advice and time and looking at all that stuff, right?
Well, yeah, and on the reverse is true too, Chris. Like if any of you are watching and you're not already in a marriage or a long-term relationship, we need to make choices now as single people so that we're healthy people going into the relationship, right? Oh, this is probably my mom calling me.
That's a great place to end.
No, we've got one more, Chris, and the last one is actually this. Tattoos. Ladies, are you with me?
Stop.
Okay, no, the last one is this. the longer that we're married, I find that serving one another on a daily level is just become part of who we are, and it's been so helpful. I feel like each of us wake up each day and just have this habit that's been formed over time of saying, how can I make your day easier today? And that might mean that Chris is cooking dinner. It might mean that we swap pickups and drop off times. It's not major changes in our family
Little
schedule.
things. It's a lot of little
tiny things. Yeah.
And if you're working on these other 5, I think this just falls naturally into place. You're constantly thinking. You can tell when the other one is having a rough day. Or when they're overwhelmed or they're overtired. It's like, hey, I'll pick up. I know I dropped off today. I'm going to pick up as well. Or I'm going to make dinner. I know it's your turn. I'm going to choose to do it anyway. That stuff all levels out.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And just, having that heart for one another and expressing your appreciation, right? Yeah. And I see couples sometimes and I feel like, I never want to take Chris for granted. Right? I appreciate all that he does for me and our family. And I feel
never
like...
want you to take me for granted.
Okay, as we wrap up today, I just want to say, if you're joining us new and you've never heard our story, Chris and I really have been through some rough patches in our marriage and some rough patches in life. And I just want to say, if you find yourself in a rough patch right now, it is worth the fight.
It is. And it's not about making it better. I think there was a time when we were at a roughest patch. All I wanted to do was just make it better and survivable. And that's not even really a word, but actually we found that you keep doing the right things, your marriage thrives. And we have young children now, and it's a model. We're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes along the way. But what a cool model we can now give to our boys. And so we hope you're encouraged by this and that there are some principles you can even look at today and start implementing, or maybe it's just a refresher, like, hey, I need to work on this area right now. And so be encouraged. We love you.
Yeah. And I just want to encourage you, if you find yourself in that rough place, please reach out. You don't have to walk that road along. You can reach out to Chris and I. It doesn't matter whether you're part of our church or not, or reach out to a friend or a support system that you have. Reach out to a counselor and start doing the work to be a better we. All right.